Welcome to the Pipeline of People podcast, powered by Versorix, the show where boutique firm leaders trade less admin for more advisory. Each week, we share actionable tactics to keep your client pipeline full and your team performing at its best. I'm your host, Jaden. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Issam Awkar, founder of Turnkey Consultancy, a results-driven firm that partners with service vendors to scale operations and boost profitability. Hey, Issam, how's it going? Could you kick us off with a quick look at your background and what led to the launch of Turnkey?
Awesome. Jaden, thank you. Thank you for having me on. So the story behind all of this. So I've been in the contracting space for 6, 7 years now. Been working with, national contracting companies, working with retail spaces and whatnot, multi-site retailers across the nation. And I've been working with these companies at an operation role for quite a while. And there's something you pick up really quick once you've done some time working with vendors there, is that these major national companies are working with vendors who are local, like a local plumber, a local electrician, a local general contractor. And sometimes, once you do this enough, you see that these vendors all, sometimes get the worst end of the stick compared when they're working with these large national companies. And that's because not all of these vendors, even though they want to work in the commercial spaces, but they're not very well versed in dealing with all of the loops, legal and operation with these, larger national companies. And, after I've seen enough of that, I was like, why not be on the side of the vendor? Why not help the local companies who are actually doing all of the work be successful and be standalone in themselves? So that's kind of the mission we have at Turnkey Consultancy, supporting these local vendors. And that's where it all started.
Okay, amazing. So what type of services do you then provide to those vendors?
So our service particularly is, like, the main thing we do is business development. So, a contractor, a local contractor is doing 6 figures, want to scale up to 7 figures. The major title, what we do is business development. Now, there's multiple layers for business development because it's only a result of, multiple factors within the business. And because we specialize in commercial contracting in specific, we dive into all of the things that make a commercial contractor successful. And that's usually, insurance compliance, good outbound strategies, internal organization and an operation wise where they're, operationally they're sound to deal with these larger companies. And, we just basically what we do is we go department by department to help these vendors have everything set up right. And once they have all of these, sections of their business set up right, that's when we start doing like outbound for these companies. So we would rep these companies and find the ideal clients for their size and market. And we just reach out to these facility managers or property managers who need local contractors to work with. And we just, help them do the onboarding and help them scale from there.
Amazing. So then in your role, what do you find yourself playing the most? Like consultant, operator, fire extinguisher.
Yeah, so me personally, you can imagine me like the guy in the trenches with a knife. That's what I enjoy doing now. Once you scale, especially as a founder, once you scale a company, you know that you can't do that anymore. You need to start delegating so you can focus on the actual stuff that move the needle once you're at scale. But if I want to, label what I like to do is always on the front line, speaking to the vendors, help them, because I come from a dispatching background myself. I started out as, just simple dispatcher, and I like to handle the jobs with them, code projects with them, talk strategy. And that's, where I thrive in, if you'd like.
Okay, got it. So what are the biggest changes that you're seeing right now in how trades-based, vendor-led businesses are thinking about growth?
Yes, that's a very, very good question, actually. So, and that's something that's also very interesting for us internally because we're seeing this, this wave of decentralized marketing, if you will, for all of these local, trade businesses, and especially in the States, the trade businesses, there's a huge demand for it, and that's not going anywhere. And you see that more and more the supply of people going into the trades is lower and lower. So that makes the industry even more on fire, if you'd wish. So I see like the biggest changes I'm seeing is a push for these companies, because these companies always operated on a local scale, a word of mouth kind of, industries. And now you're seeing this big push for even the smallest companies to go into advertising, to go into marketing, and to try outbound strategies to grow their business. And, we're seeing a lot of even AI integration into this industry, a lot with, estimating, a lot with quoting, a lot with material sourcing. We're seeing AI applications. So it's already a very fast-paced industry. And what we're seeing is that's just, going down that path to becoming fast-paced.
Yeah. Do you use AI in your services? Like have you explored how it helps business development at all?
Yeah, so in business development particularly, I know, like, we personally do not use any AI because we don't have that big volume, if you'd wish. But I would see the value in it of somebody who's trying to automate like a sales channel or a pipeline, and in some ways integrating AI into that, especially if they're a high volume, business. But we're, more of a boutique kind of agency. So it's still very selective in our outbound, but I would see the value in that.
For sure. It's a very powerful tool. So today's topic is kind of around what top talent really want. So I want to explore that, both within your business and what you're seeing in your clients' businesses. So what kind of subtle signals have you seen from like top performers at these businesses? Are they quietly disengaging? Are they still delivering? How do you handle that?
So, I've struggled with this particular topic quite a lot, but I've always thought that if you want, like, how I try to think about this is like, once you're trying to attract talent, it's a relationship between this talent and your business.
Mhm.
And you need to work on what type of relationship do you want, or what type of people do you want to attract. So it's always, for me, it's internal outward. So you work on the internals to attract the right people. But I've always thought that putting the right incentives is what creates, a good relationship with top talent. And that's what I thought would attract top talent and keep them there to stay. And I've learned the expensive way that maybe it's one motivating factor, but I don't think it's the basis to attract good talent consistently and keep them in your company performing. And with time, I've come to realize that it all comes down to values. Like, if it's the values and the vision, if this individual who you're considering hiring and you consider top talent and you want them to actually succeed on the long run with you and actually, perform, I think it's a very important thing to check if the vision you have for your business and the vision of what they can bring to the table matches, and there's no, opposing forces there. On each business to me is a set of values, especially when, it's founder led. These values are easily propagated through the different, interactions you do with stakeholders and clients and employees. So I think that if you can button down the values and be in accordance to that, I think that's the basis for the long. Also, results and, and having the right incentives in place and looking for the right skills is definitely important. But I think that all comes secondary to vision and values, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you then make sure that your employees know and resonate with your values, and what are they?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question. So what I try to do, if it's somebody new who's joining the team, I always like to connect on to them on a personal level. Like, rather, before getting into any specific about the skills, because now there are some skills that this is maybe, debatable for, but I believe in general, skills could be easily taught if you have the right mindset, especially if you are doing something a little bit different and you have some sort of extensive training anyways. So I work backwards from that. I would like to sit down to the person and see how they've dealt with, things that they can share, and what they've done in the past in certain situations where they've been pressed or pushed or pinched. That's where I, like to go with a person before even considering them to join the team. And if I want to, as far as our values and the constant push that I try to make sure the Turnkey Consultancy embodies these values, and they're stoic in origin. So we really like, this approach and this philosophy where everything is upfront, especially in the contracting space, and it's part of our mission where, there's always somebody getting the worst end of the stick. And everything is all meddled up in like long contracts, which that local contractors more often than not are not going to read, and that's going to cost them maybe thousands of dollars down the line because of small legal terms that they haven't had a lawyer just to read over a standard MSA. So that's reflective in our and the way we package our services, because we're on a on results basis agency. So all of our clients that we work with, I just tell them up front, it's like the only way we win is that you win, because we operate with you guys on results, and we believe in results. And I believe that if I want to actually provide value to a customer, I need to provide that value upfront, and I need to always make sure that this customer is getting an appropriate solution, and is only being, and that solution is relative to the actual benefit that they're getting. That's how we try to measure our performance. It's always by what is the tangible result. Everybody can talk the talk and sell dreams to vendors, especially in the advertising and business development space. So what we try to do is always, under promise and over deliver. That's like a big mantra for us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so when you're delivering your services, you said you like to be in the trenches. Are you working more so with the founders of these companies, or do you get to engage with the actual people doing the work? And if so, how are their views and values different from maybe someone more business oriented like the founder?
Awesome. Yes. So again, another very good question. So most of our clients are actually, like, let's say, for example, like general contractors, they're owner operators. So they like own the business, and they're very much involved with the field work, and some of them have teams of technicians. Nevertheless, each new client that we're bringing in, onboarding, I would like to speak with the owner and the founder at first to make sure that the solution we're implementing is in line with their vision and their values and what they're trying to achieve with their business. Everybody believes that more is better, and I definitely don't. So it's always very good to steer in the right direction. That's why I always like to speak with, the founders and the decision makers at these businesses, and we have regular meetings to make sure that we're always on track with the original vision we set in place. But to be honest, especially because our team is also connected to their team when it comes to the field work itself. And that's where the important piece of the puzzle comes in, is that we make sure that we're transferring over the agreed vision for this project actually to the people who are executing the project itself, which from our end would be like the project manager, and from their end would be the technician who's performing the service itself. So we're pretty much always trying to get the broad vision and the broad sale direction always applied on every single task, whether it's a job request, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, whether it's any type of communication, any type of action that we take on behalf of this business or help this business do. We always make sure that it's aligned with the vision.
Amazing. Impressive. I want to turn the lens inward now a little bit and kind of do a little bit of reflection. So, as you scale Turnkey, one, what's the culture that you're trying to build that could retain your top talent? And two, where do you want to be in 6 to 12 months?
Okay, so the culture that I'm trying to build, that's something I always, worry about and always think about, because I think it's the cornerstone. Like, a company by definition is a group of people. And if you just get a group of people together without the right culture, I mean, you could get somewhere, but definitely you're not getting far. If the work feels grumpy because the culture is not there, you're not getting far. So that's why I always try to make sure that we're on par. And it's been particularly difficult for us because we did a transition from being like in an office, and then we went to full scale remote. And that I know that's like the new trend debate, and I see that the big companies are actually doing the switch back. And we're very late to this trend, where we actually went remote recently. And it was one of the very big concerns for me that you wouldn't be able to preserve the culture in a remote environment. And I think that's something I will figure out down the road. So far, it's been good, but I can speak to whether or not it's going to have profound effects on culture. And that's definitely a worry for me.
Yeah, what steps have you been doing to kind of retain that culture? I know some places will do like Zoom events or like interesting things like, talent shows, things like that. Just something to get everyone together whether it's virtual or, in person?
Yeah. Not to be judgmental over, what different organizations do. I believe that there's a lot of things that are done as a facade to
Mhm.
keep, employees virtually engaged in whatever your company is trying to do. What I focus on when it comes to culture is, first of all, it's not coming from one source. Like there's always this, I don't know, maybe conception that the culture is coming from the founder. It's actually not that. It's actually like the byproduct of everybody's work. And like you can't really define what makes up a company's culture, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like it's very difficult. It's just, philosophy in which the work is being done and the connection between the people is done. So what we would rather always do and we always focus on is that we're always, doing these when we're meeting up with the team, and I always make it a case to meet in person. And when we meet in person, we're never discussing, like individual events or individual instances. We're always on big picture. We're always doing introspection on, okay, what on a grand scale could be done better, and down the line, where do we want to be, and are we still doing the things, according to the gates that we put in. Like, this is our next target for the 12 months. Let's make sure that all of our activities that are being done are aligning more or less directly or indirectly to that larger goal. And I think that if everybody in your company is aware, first of all, of your goals, and second of all, feel like they're contributing and they're actually contributing to these goals, I think that's how you get healthy culture.
Makes them feel like, the work they're doing actually making a difference,
Makes a difference.
being a part of decision making. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, and then back to the second part of the question. Where do you see yourself in 6 to 12 months versus where you are now?
Yeah, so currently, we've been doing a lot of exploration on like what type of. I'm sure you're aware of Alex Hormozzi's content, maybe, and he
Yep.
he has one very big thing about niching down. And I've
Hmm.
been getting this from multiple, mentors I've been speaking to, is always try to niche down. I'm like, I'm already niche down. I'm working with commercial contractors. They're like, no, you need to niche down further from there. So that's what we're currently exploring. We're currently testing that maybe if we focus only on commercial plumbing contractors is the way to go for us. We're currently testing because right now we work with practically multiple types of commercial contractors. But I think from 6 to 12 months, my primary target is to being able to really say that, yes, this is my niche, like this is my sub niche, and I want to focus on that. I think maybe that's the biggest priority.
Yeah, no, niching is very powerful. You just need to test a whole bunch, make sure that, because it's a parabola, inverse U, diminishing returns. If you niche too far, you're rid of all of your TAM. You don't want that. But
Exactly.
yeah, no, there's a sweet spot for sure.
Yeah, we're trying to find that out.
Yeah. I wish you the best of luck. Okay, so quick rapid fire close. I'm gonna ask, I have 3 questions here, just short off the top of your
Okay.
head, right? Okay, number one, what's the biggest myth about top performers in consulting?
They come from a high educational background, or they have like fancy degrees.
Interesting. That's a unique perspective I haven't heard. Could you actually elaborate on that a little bit more and your experience?
Yeah, so it comes down to a perspective I've first came across from, he's a Lebanese author. His name is Nassim Taleb. He has this book called Black Swan. And he has this, I'm gonna butcher the exact naming, but he has this thing is like, once you, let's say, someone who looks the part, and let's say two people are equally, successful at their thing, but somebody really doesn't look the part and somebody does look the part, you should always, in his perspective, choose the person who doesn't look the part, because they worked way harder than the person who actually looks the part to get there. And once I heard that, it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. Some people who really want to, perform, and they're very dedicated and they're very goal oriented, especially in this niche, and they haven't had this formal training and formal perspective set in place from them from universities and from like educational programs. They had to figure that stuff on their own. And if you make me choose between the two of someone who had to figure it out on his own, means he had to do this multiple ways to figure out, okay, this is the best way to do it. And he reached that conclusion on his own, which is the way more convincing thing to have internally than something you just took for granted, like took at face value.
Yeah.
Like, this is how you do it.
Wow. Interesting. Very insightful. Okay, on to the next one. What is one move that a founder or leader should make this week to retain their best people?
Speak to them, connect, ask them about their goals, ask them about their, try to connect with them as people. What I think is the best advice, and this is what's giving me the biggest return, is when I speak to someone and I connect to them and really understand where they're at, and this way we can, collaborate better to go further.
Okay. Finally, what is your favorite lesson from the field or something that a client taught you that stuck?
Favorite lesson from the field or something a client taught you that stuck? Yeah, there's this one vendor I've worked with, and we had a very, nice relationship going back and forth, me and him, for a long while. And somebody I knew kind of screwed him out of, a project. And I'm not going to just go into the whole story, but a couple of months later, he had the chance to kind of stick it back to the person. And he was like, and he didn't do it. And I was really surprised because, the first time he was really like, he really like, bullied over, if you want. So he said, and I asked him, like, well, why didn't you do it? I'm just curious because you were so furious about this. He was like, the best thing you can do in a situation like this is not to become like the wrongdoer. It's like the best revenge is not to become like the wrongdoer. Even when he had the chance to do it and it was completely plausible. And that's stuck with me. It's like, just, whenever somebody has wronged you and you have the chance to maybe, or in your head, you wanna get it back to them, just, the best thing you can do is not become them. And that's something that stuck with me, and I've tried to apply it ever since.
Yeah, no, it's always better to be the bigger person. Two wrongs don't make a right, but
Exactly.
definitely not always an easy thing. All right, Issam, really appreciated your time. Tons of insights. Thank you.
Jayden, thank you for your time.